Hello again, and welcome to yet another life-affirming episode of the Atheist Experience. I am your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Jen Peeples.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Jen, I understand will be talking to us a little later about creaming your data, which sounds a lot dirtier than it actually is.
Yeah.
You'll just have to wait until I finish the announcements before you find out what she means by that. Today is Sunday, May 30th. We are a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas. We take calls from the local Austin area as well as all over the world from our internet audience. The Atheist Experience is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can find out more by visiting our website at www.atheist-community.org. When you do, be sure to check out the Frequently Asked Questions page for answers to all your questions, as long as they're frequent. The show is live every Sunday from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Central Time on Austin Access Channel 16 normally. However, tonight, because of scheduling conflicts, which seem to be rather regular, we are on from 6 to 7:30 p.m. If you would like to watch us live outside of Austin, simply visit the official Atheist Experience website, www.atheist-experience.com. Click on Live Stream at the top of the page, and you can also participate in the chat room during the show. Also at the website, you will find audio and video from past episodes. If you click on Archive, you'll find a list of programs that includes links to both audio and video downloads, including the audio podcast. You can catch fan-selected clips of the Atheist Experience on YouTube, and you can also see full episodes of the show at blip.tv or subscribe to the podcast. In addition to this program, the ACA sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. Liar. Actually, you can visit www.nonprofitsradio.com for more information. The Nonprofits is still on indefinite hiatus. We will let you know as soon as we have one actually scheduled. Weekly meetings for the Atheist Community of Austin are hosted at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road from 11:30 to 1 every Sunday except for the first Sunday of the month, when we host our lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. The next lecture is going to be next week, June 6th, and it will feature Doyle Duke, who is the author of A Critical Analysis of Christianity. If you can't make it to the morning meetings, you could ordinarily join us for dinner at Threadgill's after this program. However, because we're not in our regularly scheduled time slot, we're starting late, we're not going. So, and if you're already there right now, since this would kind of be the time when you would show up, sorry.
Yeah, I think Don put that up on the website.
Yeah, but you know that some
notice.
people are going to miss it. So we apologize to those people in advance. Finally, the ACA also hosts an Atheist Happy Hour every Thursday, beginning at around 7 p.m. at the Dog and Duck Pub, located at the corner of 17th and Guadalupe. If you'd like to get in touch with us but don't feel like calling in, you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. As always, priority for callers will be given to local callers and people who actually have points of disagreement to raise with us. If you just want to say hi and thank us for what we do, email is the best way to go. Lots of people read the messages to that email address, so you stand a pretty good chance of receiving a response. Be sure to check out the unofficial show blog at atheistexperience.blogspot.com, as well as the comprehensive counter-apologetics wiki at ironchariots.org. I don't think I have much in the way of special announcements, although I believe the ACA is participating in the Gay Pride Festival next week. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And what time is that? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay, well, I could look it up, but that would be time wasting, and you can just check out atheist-community.org.
Yes.
So check that out, because we might still need people to help out and man the booths, or you know, it's a whole lot of fun every year, even if you're not gay.
Yeah.
You know, I would be going even if I wasn't planning to help man the booths, which I am.
I thought you were about to say I'd be going even if I wasn't gay. I was like, oh, Russell.
Yes, I'm actually coming out. No.
Yeah.
Hi, Linnea. All right, so what's up with creaming your data?
Creaming your data. Well, you know how Chuck Coughlin claims all this great success with his prison ministry for rehabilitating
I'm
offenders?
actually very familiar with that, and
Yes,
if you hunt down the Chuck Coughlin tag at the Atheist
Yeah.
Experience blog, you'll see lots of stuff I've written about that.
Well, you know, we sometimes get an email now and then from someone saying, hey, can it be true that, you know, believing in God or doing this program actually works better than all these other rehabilitation programs?
Mm-hmm.
Could it possibly be the case? The answer is no. There's actually a reason that they get the data they get. And one of those reasons is that they manipulate the numbers. In the case of Chuck Coughlin, he sets up all of these requirements that participants in this prison ministry have to meet in order to be considered satisfactory participants.
Chuck Coulson's program basically force feeds Christianity, well, not
Right.
force feeds, but inducts people into this program
Right.
to feed them a load of Christian BS, and then claims that that if they've gone through this program, then they're less likely to go back to prison.
Right.
Of course, what he doesn't tell you is that if you wind up like not getting a job once you're out of prison, then you're not considered to have gone through the program at all.
Exactly.
Which kind of skews the data.
Right.
So,
Right. Having a job after you get out of prison is probably the single best predictor that someone will not reoffend.
and that's true whether or not they did Coulson's stupid,
Right.
useless program.
So by inducting all these people into this program and then not counting the group of people who don't get a job, they're basically creaming their data. They're taking a subset of the original sample and saying, look how effective our program is. But in fact,
Can you explain the use of the word creaming?
yeah, creaming means that, you know, the idea is that, you know, when you get some milk or something, the cream rises to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to, for example, make butter, you would skim the cream off. Well, in this case, you're basically skimming the top, the people that are going to succeed anyway, off the top of this, and using that as if this were your entire sample. It's a dishonest tactic. But that's how these prison ministries can claim all the success, is that they discount all of the people who didn't succeed in their program.
Right. What's especially galling is that they take the best representatives of the sample that they want to look good, and then
Right.
they don't. I mean, it would be fine as long as they took the best representatives of the other side. Like
Right.
if they compared all the people who went through their program and got a job to all the people who didn't go through their program and got a job, that would be fair. It wouldn't
Right.
necessarily show the whole picture, but it would at least be something relevant.
Right. And in fact, if you do that, if you compare this sort of apples to apples samples, what you find is that their prison ministry programs aren't that effective at preventing people from reoffending. And there are other examples where this happens as well. One of the primary examples is abstinence-only education. The proponents of abstinence-only education will tell you abstinence is 100% effective at preventing pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections and all this stuff. Well, here's the reality. If I'm going to assess the effectiveness of, for example, a birth control method, let's say condom use, when organizations out there, legitimate organizations, compare the effectiveness of condom use with other forms, or including abstinence, what they do is they take into account the failure of the condom itself, plus the failure of the individual to use it correctly. So if they use it inconsistently, if they use it incorrectly, it slips off. So all of these failures are counted in the statistics of this particular method's failures. What the abstinence-only people do is they count only the people who remain abstinent the whole time, not the people who start off on this abstinence path and then fail to use the method correctly. So in essence, they have this sample of people who, well, of course, none of them get pregnant. They're not having sex. But then you have all these other people who the abstinence message didn't quite work for them. They did not use the method correctly, but they aren't counted in the statistics against the method.
Ooh.
So,
You know, coincidentally, condoms have a 100% success rate among people who don't have sex.
exactly. Yes. And you know, it should be pointed out that the effectiveness of condoms when used correctly and consistently is quite high, rivals the pill.
Right.
Which of course the abstinence-only people will not tell students. And
Of course, and you know, the rate of people who wind up saying, "Oops, I forgot I was supposed to be abstinent,"
yeah,
is a lot higher than the people who screw up condom use.
yeah. Because if you're not abstinent, you can always ask Jesus to forgive you.
True.
You know, because you're just human. Right? Okay. So anyway, why is this relevant? Well, because, you know, the State Board of Education fight that we just went through with the social studies curriculum, the next subject on the list for the State Board of Education to take on is the health curriculum, which includes birth control. And of course, Texas is one of the states that really hammers on that abstinence-only message. It's been a disaster for this state. Texas has, I think have slipped behind Mississippi as the second highest rate of teen pregnancy.
Yeah.
But I think we're still holding on to our status as the #1 state for repeat births to teenage mothers. So,
we're #1.
yeah. And of course, the population that this hurts the most, aside from obviously girls, it's primarily minorities who really have enough of an uphill battle already without being saddled with the responsibilities of parenthood at an early age. So we have quite a fight on our hands, and so it's important for people out there to know where the abstinence-only people get these numbers. They're not real. They're not correct. And actually, Guttmacher Institute has some real numbers. They actually do this research. So if you want the real deal, go to Guttmacher Institute. And that's pretty much what I have for the topic today, unless you want to...
That was short.
Yeah,
Well, actually, we do have callers already.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Oh, well, I've got an update from the studio that the Pride Festival is Saturday, June 5th. That is next week, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the ACA will have a presence there throughout the day. So
Okay.
That's that information. All right, so we're going to start on Jim in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Hi.
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 Yeah, my question for you is, I guess I don't believe in any religion. I believe they're all, a load of crap. But it just seems to me I can't imagine a way we could have this gigantic, infinitely old universe without having come from somewhere or something.
Well, which is it? Somewhere or something? Or
Well, I
or
don't know.
did you have someone in mind?
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
What makes you think the universe is infinitely old?
Well, I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, let's say, for example, the universe is 1 billion years old. What happened?
It's
What
more
was
than
there
that.
before
Actually,
that? Was there
I mean,
nothing there?
You ought to get the science straight for starters. The Big
Yeah.
Bang happened about 14.5 billion years
Right.
ago.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm
13.
just picking a number.
13.
Even if you say a trillion year, 14, whatever time number you want to use, there was time before that time.
Well,
Not exactly.
we don't know.
There is some actual science surrounding this stuff, which you ought to look up. But the bottom line that you ought to know is that the history of the universe as we know it basically goes back to about Oh shoot, I'm blanking on the number right now, but it's a very, very small fraction of a second after the Big Bang happened. It's called the Planck time. Yeah. It's something like 10 to the minus 42 seconds. Does that sound right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I usually have that number on the top of my head, but I haven't got it right. The reason that the history of the universe that we know only goes back that far is because when you collapse all that matter into such a very small, very dense amount of space, the laws of physics that we're aware of don't work the same way anymore. And so the problem is that it's difficult to investigate anything that happened before that instant in time. But that doesn't mean that we've said anything about what happened at that point. There are a whole lot of different competing theories about what happened before that moment of the Big Bang. And they're more like hypotheses because, as I said, we can't really test them. I mean, some of the things that people have thought up are, it could be that the matter in the universe is infinitely old, but it keeps going through a series of oscillations, expanding and contracting again and forming another Big Bang. There's another interesting theory that says that basically every universe is actually formed from a black hole in another universe, or there's a meta universe which continues to exist and is spawning new universes all the time. The point is not that we've said for sure that that time does a particular thing before the Big Bang, but that all we can really say at this point is we don't know. And it would make no sense and also be irresponsible to make up something like, oh, so from that we can conclude that there's an infinitely old being who dreams up universes. Because then, of course, you'd get into the same problem of where did that thing come from?
Okay, well, yeah, I guess, I'm not a physics expert, obviously.
Right.
But, it just seems to me, I guess it's the argument that, how can something, come from nothing? All this matter that you have in the universe, where does it come from? And, I guess, maybe we're in agreement here. I'm not sure, but it seems to me that it had to come from somewhere, and whether you want to call that God or the universe or...
Well, I mean, why would you call it God? What are the properties of a God?
Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
So how can you conclude a God did it?
I mean, the problem with calling it God is it kind of muddies the issue right from the start, because when you say God, people have a lot of people have a very specific thing in mind. If it turns out that God is just like another universe, to take one of the examples I said, then why would you call it God instead of, universe N or whatever?
Well, I suppose you could.
Right.
It just seems to me strange that we would have this universe, and it just kind of came from nowhere and didn't, doesn't have anything to do.
But nobody says it came from nowhere exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think it came from nowhere?
Well, no, I'm not. I don't think it came from nowhere. I think it came from something.
Well, that something was the singularity.
Okay, well, where'd the singularity come from?
Well, we don't know.
A lot of different competing hypotheses.
Yeah.
There are a lot of reasons why some are favored over others.
Okay, I guess is it possible that there was some supreme intelligence that is transcendent that created it?
Well, I mean, anything is possible, but why would we consider that even the slightest bit plausible when the idea of a supreme intelligence is every bit as problematic, if not a lot more so, because intelligence is so complicated to begin with, as just, I mean, if this supreme intelligence always existed from nowhere without having been created, then why are we bothered by the idea of a universe doing that?
Well, because the universe, because this other thing would have made the universe, I guess
but
my
what
problem
made
is
it?
the universe
But where did it come from?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Exactly.
Well, there you go.
That's all I'm saying. There's a certain point at which you say, I don't know. But some people feel like they need to make up a bunch of other stuff before that step of saying, I don't know, in order to make themselves comfortable with the answer.
Well, no, I don't believe that. No. I do believe in science. I guess you should.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, there is a lot more science and philosophy that talks about this stuff. It may not be as conclusive as you like, but I think that you would benefit a lot from reading more about the stuff.
Yeah.
Who's that guy? Lee Smolin, I think, is the one with the recursive universe theory, which I think is the coolest one, even if it's not necessarily true.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's interesting. Actually,
well, to me, whether it's, you know, the universe started with the Big Bang, or you've got oscillating universes coming in and out, it really doesn't matter. The fact is, you've got all this matter and energy and that made the Big Bang, if it made it, or if the oscillating universe, whichever theory is right. I would just like to know where that came from. What made this gigantic universe come into existence?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sorry to frustrate you on that, but as I said, the only thing I can say about science at this point is don't know, and that's the same thing that religious people say about their God.
Okay.
So, introducing a religion doesn't actually solve the problem.
No, clearly it doesn't.
And I know you said you don't like religions, but I mean, you also brought up a God. So what I meant by a religion is just a concept of some supreme being.
yeah. You know, one thing that you might want to do is, there's a guy named Brian Greene. He's a physicist, and I think he was on a PBS series on, you know, the origins of the universe. So if you go onto the PBS website, and you search on Brian Greene, and his last...
Is that with an E?
Yeah, with the E on the end.
Greene.
Yeah. The series is really great. You'll find it entertaining, and I think it may answer some of your questions.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. And, you know, I hope you either find what you're looking for or learn to be satisfied with not knowing.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I love the show. It's much better than when I used to have to go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, there's a solution to that.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Bye. And thank you to our crack research team in the studio for telling me that the Planck time, according to the prestigious Wikipedia, is 5.4 times 10 to the minus 44 seconds.
All right.
And sorry for blanking on that. I feel terrible. Sorry, Dad. Luca, New York. Luca from New York, New York.
Hello.
Are you there? Hi.
How you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
All right. And I have a little story I would like to tell, which is primarily directed at any Christian watchers, listeners, maybe on.
Okay.
I have a cousin called Samantha, and she's a little bit overweight. And so she hired a diet expert who had her primarily eat oranges. And the funny thing about this diet expert is that it's not a person, it's actually a talking lizard that she keeps in a cage in her apartment. So obviously,
this is an allegorical story you're telling us, right?
Excuse me?
This is an allegorical story of some sort that you're telling us, right?
Of course.
Okay.
It's not, but my point is, obviously people wouldn't believe that, right? And if instead of me telling it to people over the internet or over TV, I were to write it on a piece of sheepskin, and then somebody made a copy of that, and a translation of the copy, and a copy of the translation of the copy, and 3,000 years later you were to read that same story, you still wouldn't believe it. So my question is, why is it that some people, when they read a story about a talking lizard telling my cousin Samantha to eat an orange, they don't believe it, but they read a 3,000-year-old story about a talking snake telling Eve to eat an apple, and they believe it?
Social reinforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, religions don't just spring up overnight for the most part.
Yeah.
People sort of get into groups and mutually reinforce each other, and then even stuff that sounds really weird becomes plausible because everyone else believes it.
Well, and there's childhood indoctrination, and the fact that very few people research the origins of their religious beliefs. So they don't know where it comes from.
I understand the mechanism from the perspective of us atheists. I mean, we look at it and we see, of course, that's what's happening historically and whatnot. But my question to somebody who's a Christian that may be listening to this is, you know, if I told you, you know, if your teenage daughter came up to you and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm pregnant, but it's not from my boyfriend of the last year and a half. I somehow got pregnant. It's not from sex." They wouldn't believe it. How can, I mean, I can understand how like a Bronze Age farmer or nomad or whatever might be told something and they'll believe it because their father believed it and their grandfather believed it. But you have like really well-educated, otherwise rational and intelligent people who completely segregate the portion of their rational thinking when it comes to believing fairy tales about Christianity. And I mean, it's just incredible to me that, you know, they don't believe Red Riding Hood and the talking big bad wolf, but they believe in the virgin birth and in the talking snake and all this stuff. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, the world is full of logical fallacies waiting to be believed, and the truth is, people aren't nearly as rational as they think they are in general, and I think that goes for you and me. That there are probably some very stupid things that we wind up believing, whether we're aware of it or not. I don't generally think that people believe in religion because they're morons, but because there's a complex group of ideas that are competing for their attention. And people are always using shortcuts and rules of thumb to decide what to believe. And, you know, some ideas take hold which don't really make a lot of sense, but they stick around anyway.
Yeah.
Right. I don't mind, let me put it this way. I'm a musician, right? And so sometimes right before I got a big show, I'll say to myself, "Come on, man, you can do it. You're the greatest guitarist in the world," something like that, right? I say an obvious lie to myself, and it makes me perform and do my job better, right? So I don't mind if somebody says, "Oh yeah, it's Jesus that wants me to be a good and charitable person. It's Jesus that wants me not to kill." I don't mind if that makes them be not killers and not thieves and good charitable people. I don't mind. But just like I know in the back of my mind that actually, by no stretch of the imagination, am I the greatest guitarist in the world, they should know that the guy couldn't walk on water and his mom had sex with her husband 9 months before he was born. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I know it's harder for you guys to talk to somebody who agrees with you, so.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling. And
All right. Can I say one other thing about the previous caller?
real quick.
Yeah, like, why is it so much of a problem to say, "I don't know"?
Well, he eventually got to it.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
and of course they always wind up saying, "I don't know," just about something else, and then they pretend that it makes sense to have injected that God in before the step of saying,
Yeah.
"I don't know."
Right. Okay, doke.
All
Okay,
right.
guys, thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you. David in Austin, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, how y'all doing?
Hello.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, to go back to what he was saying and what he said at the beginning, abstinence is, according to dogma, is not 100% effective.
Okay.
That's true if you happen to be the
They
chosen
can't
vessel.
really say, "Oh, it's 100%
Yeah.
effective," when they're in the next breath they say, "Oh, Jesus was mother was a virgin."
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, even according
That is
to
all.
Christian dogma, that hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
You got to admit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And considering how many people have existed in the world since the beginning, you know, the rate of effectiveness of abstinence is so close to 100% as to be almost identical.
Yes, negligible numbers.
Right.
All right, well, y'all have a great show. I will be watching you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
There's an interesting thing. There have been no small number of Christian theists who've attempted to prove that Jesus only had 24 chromosomes by allegedly finding some sample of his blood somewhere. And that would be the 23 that he got from Mary plus the Y chromosome that he presumably got from Yahweh.
Oh, okay. And they know
So-
exactly how many chromosomes God has? God is mysterious and can't be investigated by science, but we know exactly how many chromosomes
Well,
he has that are different from people?
I guess their point is that, that he wouldn't have gotten any chromosomes from God, but he had to get the Y in there because he was male.
Yeah,
And otherwise he would have been female, and we can't have that.
But why wouldn't God have just created 2 or 10 or 500 chromosomes? I mean,
Yeah.
how do they know? In one breath they tell you that it's mysterious and you can never find out anything, and it makes him mad when science investigates things. And then in another breath they just say with absolute certainty the things that they think they know about God.
It's funny because it's like if he was going to choose Mary as the chosen vessel, why not choose Joseph as the chosen vessel and just have Joseph do the deed? And that'd be perfectly explainable, and you wouldn't have had that, awkward situation where Mary's telling people, "Oh, I'm pregnant, but I didn't do anything."
Right, or the Life of Brian version of that story.
Yeah.
Which has always been my favorite, which is that, Brian's mother is standing in front of a crowd, and one of them just yells out, "Are you a virgin?" Yeah. And then she slams the door, and incensed, and they say, "Oh yeah, she must be."
Yeah.
Next we just got through David and Austin, so
Let's
that
get
is
to-
an international call from Hanny in Sydney, Australia. Are you there?
I am here. How are you guys?
Good.
What's up?
Oh, it's Harry.
Just firstly, this is such a great show. I caught on to you guys a few weeks ago, and I really love and respect the things that you guys do. I think it's terrific. But from a further standpoint, I just want to suggest or maybe discuss something with you. I'm sure you guys may have already thought of this, but from a universal standpoint for the human race, what I see that's occurring at the moment is that we're now sitting at a similar argument. That's like, the whole world is round and the world is an argument that occurred, long ago. And eventually we got to the point where we were able to prove that the world is spherical, and that throughout the whole argument out the window.
Okay, that happened like a couple thousand years before some people think it did, right? The ancient Greeks knew that the world was round.
Yeah, there were ways to prove it. Using the measurement of shadows and how shadows lengthen across a round surface as opposed to a flat surface. Mm-hmm. Have you heard?
Okay.
But besides that, anyway, I just want to talk about the standpoint of where the show is in particular, like the Atheist Experience and the position that it asserts. And the level of the playing field that I'm right and you're wrong level. I'm an atheist myself, and a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about and mention and discuss is very close to the way I see it as well. And you guys stand for something. You stand for truth. You stand to uncover a lot of the bullshit that's occurring across the entire planet.
Well, we like to try. Thank you.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to go over is is it possible for us as a human race, for the 7 billion people, to create a standpoint that is above the argument of the I'm right, the you're wrong? What is the next step, or can we create the next step for us as a human race to say that, that everybody can establish as their core identity, the fundamental core identity of everyone is that our identities are searching to identify the identity. Does that make sense?
No.
Is that we're trying to find our place in this universe. What is it that we're doing in all these questions? that go around every human, well, almost every human being's brain. So is there one truthful, unifying statement that can establish kind of like a mission statement of a company.
Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, here's the problem. Every person is a unique individual, like you say, and every person has their own mind and their own objectives, and anything that we come up with as a mission statement and we describe it as this is what we want is not going to be true for some people. There are broad guidelines and rules that we can come up with that help all these different people live together, mostly without killing each other, we hope.
Yeah.
But you're never going to come up with some kind of universal statement of value that encompasses everyone's interests.
Okay, so if we take, for example, a company like IBM.
Okay.
IBM has 400,000 employees working for the company.
Right.
The company has to establish for itself like a core mission statement. That's something that it stands for innovation. It stands for the betterment of its product or whatever it is.
Sure, but what you're
statement.
missing here is that participation in IBM is voluntary.
Yeah.
I mean, IBM decides that their mission statement is something that is what the founders actually want, or the current CEO and the board of directors that guide the vision for IBM. But anybody who is working there can decide that they are interested in furthering that goal or not, or they're interested in pretending that they want to further that goal to the extent that it can help them pull a steady paycheck, which is not a small thing in this economy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, IBM doesn't get to make up a mission statement for everybody on Earth.
I understand that, but is it? So how is it? If unification is, how can the human race unite on this core level? If there is a division, this is the thing. If the Earth is divided at a core level, like at its most fundamental level, right? How is the unification going to occur without this? If there's groups of people saying that they believe in Allah, and this group of people are saying they believe in Jesus Christ, and this, and all this is going, which in a sense affects choices and affects the actions that people take. Like this young Muslim girl can't marry this young Christian boy, or they can, but they're going to face a lot of problems.
Let me ask you something.
At their core level, right, which religion
let me ask you
seeks
something.
to answer.
Why do you think that some kind of unification is desirable, and what do you mean by that?
If you're watching, hang on. If you're watching over the internet right now, could you cut off your feed of the show so that we can not get feedback from ourselves on the air?
Yeah.
I'm not watching on the internet. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. You might need to put a pair of headphones on, but I guess it's a little late for that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
So my question was, what do you mean by unification, and why do you think that's a good thing?
Because I think that in unification, a greater power can be formed.
Do what?
Whatever it is that we're growing towards.
Be careful about forming greater powers. You know that absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. I'm not sure that everybody joining together to decide what's right for all future generations is really something desirable that we ought to work towards at all.
Mm.
I mean, I would be happy if we get to a point where more people understand that we create our own meaning in life, and we have the intrinsic value and worth as human beings that we attribute to ourselves, and that they don't look for some external power to do that for us. I mean, and basically what you're talking about sounds like you're trying to set up some other larger external power to provide that to someone, and I think it's valuable for people to do that on their own.
I may have used the wrong word. What I'm trying to set up is that every human being has this awareness that seems to recognize the consciousness. Like I know that I am, and my identity is trying to figure out what is this identity that I have. And I think this is like the fundamental point of everything that humans do. That I can say, I could be wrong about this, of course, but the atheist experience for finding the truth, and essentially, and religions kind of stand for they stand for what they think is the truth, but they've sort of gone in some wrong direction. But fundamentally, at the core of us is that we're all trying to find out more, and we are evolving. I mean, if we had evolved from cells billions of years ago, when the Earth, if that is the accepted truth of what we are, then clearly we're evolving towards something. We're growing towards something. I mean, I've got 5 senses now. I didn't have 5 senses.
There's no evidence that we're growing toward anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're committing a fallacy by just trying to make an assumption that you can predict the future based on the past. I mean, I think that anybody who actually studies evolution would have to honestly say that there's no way of knowing which way any species will evolve in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, educated guesses are the best they can make. I think that this idea that you're trying to come up with about the inevitability of some particular thing happening just isn't supported.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I suppose I'm trying to see it as a possibility, and hope that the human race could somehow come together to improve itself and take itself to a new level that's out of the fantasies that it's in at the moment.
Well,
I guess
and we're getting there.
That's the wish. Yeah.
I mean, we are getting there. I mean, if you look at the way we are right now, the way the world is right now, we're in a much more peaceful time. People. Look at back at ancient history, and if you look at the wars that took out larger percentages of population at one time.
Right. Percentage-wise, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there just weren't that many people on the planet, but a larger percentage of them died in violent conflicts. They died of disease. They died in disasters, all kinds of things. And we've used our big brains to overcome a lot of these obstacles to human survival. That's why we have 7 billion people on the planet now. And even situations like starvation, people have applied their knowledge of things to...
I think we're going to have to let this be the last part of the response to Hanny, since we're still getting that feedback.
Yeah.
But if you want to say one last thing, then we'll take it off the air.
No, I mean, I'm with you on this. Right. That we've definitely been in a better place than what we've been in the last 10,000 years. It's definitely headed in a better direction, anyway, that I can see.
Okay. Well, I like to end on an upbeat note. So, thanks for your call, and email us if you have any more thoughts. And I think constant, steady improvement is the best that we can really do.
Yeah.
But finish your thought.
Well, I mean, if you just look back in history, I mean, and you don't even have to go any further than the Bible to look at the history that it records, and everything that's recorded in there is not fiction. There's actually some history in there, and we can look at sources outside the Bible to find evidence that certain things took place. And especially when it talks about armed conflict, that's fairly easy to verify, because you've got two parties who don't necessarily have an interest in reporting the same events the same way. But if you've got two parties in conflict who record the events in a similar way, you can be a lot more confident that that actually happened. And so based on this, we can look at that and say, well, there were some really bloody conflicts that happened in ancient history. And if you look now, we don't have these things. I mean, we're talking about conflicts that spanned most of what was the known world at that time, and encompassed entire civilizations. And we just don't see that happening in the world today, where one conflict spans entire civilizations and drags whole populations of people down with it, except for maybe, we've got a few genocides going on right now, but,
Yeah.
even those, percentage-wise, don't compare to the genocides that occurred in some of the ancient societies.
Sure, I'll go with that.
So, I think we are getting better, and like you said, incremental progress. That's probably the best we can do.
Right. Richard in Austin. Are you there?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, you're on.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, how are
Fine,
you?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm calling, my comments were more or less in line with the last caller.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
you want to elaborate on that?
As human mankind, we're still
You may want to turn
Yeah.
off your TV if it's still on.
we're not we're okay. Well, we're still questioning a bunch of things that we don't know in regards to creation and how we appeared on Earth and everything. I know everybody. There's still a lot of opinions, and look at the dinosaurs. There's still about 5 different theories in regards to how they disappeared and everything. But my as a thinking person, you think of how how humans exist alongside all the other species, and what makes us so different to them. So that's there's still a lot of mystery, even our own existence on this universe. What is the end of space, infinite space?
Okay, so
And,
I'm getting your statement that there are a lot of things we still don't know. Can you get to a point? Richard?
Well, there's it's not every answer or every answer that people have is not definite, and it's always it's going around in circles. So
Well, not always going around in circles. I mean, there is a systematic way that we have of investigating things that really happen and coming to a better understanding of actual truth over time, right? I mean, do you agree with that? Like, nobody's going to go back to the point where they're saying that the sun is moving around the Earth. That concept is pretty much dead. And we're pretty sure that the view we have of the solar system now is right. Would you agree with that?
well, those are objects that are hanging in space, and like the Earth and the Sun and the Moon, and those are very definite objects that you can't deny. And but how about human mankind and the ability to be different of all the species? That's still a mystery. And
Well, not
Well, no,
really.
it's
I mean,
not.
space.
that
In regards to space, infinite space. What's behind infinity?
that's not even much of a real question.
Yeah.
That seems to be in English, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really add up to a meaningful statement.
Do you understand that infinity is a concept? It's not a number or a place that you can get to?
Well, even our own existence is still a concept because science seems to be changing it all the time. Look at Lucy and that we came from monkeys, and then
No, we didn't come from monkeys.
monkeys.
Who told you we came from monkeys?
if you get a science book, you can tell.
I got a lot of science books,
different-
and none of them say that.
Well,
Yeah, I'm sorry. What?
there's some. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but there is some. If you
No.
Right. No,
if
I
you-
think
if
the
evolution-
problem we've
if
got
you,
here. I think the problem we've got here
if
is
you
that
follow
you've
the
got a
trace of
little bit.
evolution,
Excuse
you can
me.
see how it's progressing through evolution.
Yeah, we understand evolution
Yeah.
pretty well. It doesn't say you come from monkeys, although that is kind of a popular misinterpretation of the evidence. What it says is that all life forms are descended through sort of a hierarchical tree of life forms, and that somewhere in the past, monkeys and humans have a common ancestor. All right?
Well, that's still a concept. I mean, it hasn't been proved in stone, and
No, it's been pretty well
concept,
demonstrated
like
that that's
word
true.
concept is.
Yeah, it's pretty well established
Yeah.
that that's what actually happened at this point.
Well, you can fill the oceans with opinions and comments. And,
It's not opinion.
And it haven't found anything definite.
Yes, we have.
Where is it?
Well,
Where can I find it?
I'm sorry, these science books that you say that you have, you
Yeah.
might try reading them a little in more detail.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be able to give a complete remedial class in biological evolution in the remaining 40 minutes that we have. So I think we're going to have to move on to the next call. This is taking a little too long. So
Yeah.
thank you for
I
calling.
believe so, and
All right, we're moving on. Sorry.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I was going to recommend to Richard that he might want to go to
Go ahead.
Science Magazine.
Yes.
They published they had 11 papers on the most recent fossil discovery in Africa, Ardipithecus ramidus. That was just a phenomenal find, and all 11 papers are actually available for download. You don't have to have a subscription for them, if I recall correctly. But actually, I think that might be a little bit too much for Richard to
Right,
bite
well,
off right now.
Even just going to
Talk
the
origins.
Wikipedia page on evolution for a basic rundown, or talkorigins.org, you go to, I don't know, you look for something like Evolution 101.
Yeah.
Or anything like that, will clear up. I mean, it's not just that this will, it's not that this will convince you that evolution is right, but
Yeah.
if you're going to say that evolution is wrong, you should at least get a basic understanding of what evolution says.
Yeah.
And if you're going to say evolution says we come from monkeys, then it's kind of hard to discuss what evolution actually says and whether it's right or wrong, because if you're going to say we
Yeah.
didn't come from monkeys, we agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to Kyle in Olympia, Washington. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I'm a fan of your show. I've been watching it on YouTube.
Thank you.
And I
Don't
love
forget
the
you
theme
can
song,
watch
too. Listen to Reason.
full episodes.
And it goes, oh yeah, the full episode. Sorry.
Right.
yeah. I've watched. I know that I gotta get it all in context, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, listen to Reason says, listen to Reason and open your eyes, and it's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. So my question is, what values do you associate with atheism? Because this is sort of the theme song for, the Atheist Experience. So are these atheist values per se, of, having an open mind and, valuing reason? Are those things that you associate with atheism?
There are no values associated with atheism.
All right. But it seems to me like, most of the people on the show, the hosts, they would seem to, I would say that you seem to value things like critical thinking and
Yes.
open-mindedness.
That
and that
is
sort
My
of thing.
my atheism is a consequence of that.
Okay.
Not.
Okay. So then you would have you encountered atheists who didn't seem to hold these values?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. We got a letter years ago from a group called the Raelians. I don't know
Yes.
if you've heard of them, but they actually believe that the Bible was created by space aliens. thousands of years ago, who came down and gave this revelation to some people, and people sort of wrote down their interactions with the aliens, but they didn't get it quite right, and that's how we have Christianity. Now, these people claim they are atheists because they don't believe in gods, but they believe in aliens and all kinds of other ridiculous things, and we don't deny that they're atheists, but we agree with almost nothing they think.
Yeah.
You're right, though, that there's sort of a common grounding in sort of rationality, open-mindedness, and the accuracy of scientific knowledge among people who are on this show. We're not claiming to speak for all atheists, though.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me like Raelians would sort of count as a religion, even though they don't believe in a god per se, but they still have a belief system, right?
Right.
And, it's based on just faith and not, I don't know. It seems like it's a belief system, right? So I guess in order to, I guess you could say there's another kind of atheism, which, is lack of religion rather than lack of God.
Well, you can have an atheistic religion.
Right.
I mean, there are some Buddhists who reject the concept of a God, and they are atheists, but they're also Buddhists.
And even here in Texas, I mean, there's the North Texas Church of Free Thought, which is, doesn't have any God basis. It doesn't really say any particular thing we find objectionable, but they do call themselves a religion. I'm not a member of them, and I probably wouldn't be, but it's their right to say that.
Okay, so is there any, other word you would use to describe atheists who aren't, like Raelians or anything like that?
There's not a good enough word, I don't think. I mean, some people have tried to throw out the word brights, but that sounds kind of patronizing, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Are you talking about specifically what you would call someone like Raelians who don't believe in a God, but they've got these other religious?
He was talking about not
wacky
Raelians.
Beliefs?
Not
Raelians.
Distinguish, because
Oh.
I like to think of, I can say atheist and mean, people like you guys.
And you can.
Okay.
Well, you can include people like us.
Obviously, Raelians aren't very much like you at all.
Here's the thing that I generally say to people, which is that the label that you apply to people isn't all that important. I mean, we call ourselves the Atheist Experience and not like the science promoting skeptics experience or something like that. Just because atheism is something that sort of jars people a little bit the way it is. It's kind of considered, sort of a bad and dangerous word in some ways. But what I'm saying here is that the particular label that you put on somebody is not as important as the concepts that those people believe in, which is why a common thing that you'll hear on the show is like, tell me what you believe and why you believe it. I can't speak, I can't speak for all atheists, and if you were to narrow it down to people who just think like me, you'd probably wind up with a pretty small set of people. I mean, there are people in this studio who think I'm full of crap on some political issues, for instance.
Oh yeah. You talk about how the atheist community of Austin is, has a wide variety of beliefs and such. Well,
sure.
There's a sort of example I wanted to give. As I watch a lot of videos on YouTube, there's a YouTube atheist named Pat Condell. Are you familiar with this person?
I think I complained about him on my last show.
And there's been sort of a thing where a lot of atheists have been following him somewhat religiously, and I feel, and they do this while claiming to have these sort of values of open-mindedness and critical thinking. And I feel like that's hypocrisy. And I feel that there are atheists who, say they have these values, but then, they only apply it to questioning religion and not themselves and not other atheists.
Well, when you say following Pat Condell, do you mean they just subscribe to his channel, or they actually,
there was an incident recently where another British YouTube atheist, Richard Coughlin, made a video basically calling out a lot of Pat Condell's hypocrisy and a lot of things which sort of go against what his supposed values are.
Right.
And
Well,
there was a huge backlash to this, you know,
based
and
on-
that's where it really
Well-
came out. And all of these people, you know, seem to be just following Pat Condell, and they have comments like, you know, Richard Coughlin, go to hell. And,
Yeah,
know,
well,
all
I
of
mean,
that
you know,
stuff.
like I said, on my last show, I complained about some stuff that Pat Condell has said. In particular, he thinks that Muslim garb for women should be outlawed, even for
Yeah.
women who want to wear it, and I think that makes no sense. And I got some angry emails saying that I really, or it wasn't that angry, but it
Yeah.
was, you know, arguing strenuously for Pat Condell's point. And, you know, I think that just goes to show further the point that any public speaker on atheism or any other topic will gain a lot of people who agree with them and a lot of vigorous disagreement from other people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people should be dogmatic about following Pat Condell or us, for that matter.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes. You know, that's a point that, you know, I definitely think is very important. People need to question everyone, not just, you know, their opposing side.
I mean, I have another example. We frequently get email from people who, for some reason, think that we missed seeing the movie Zeitgeist. Okay?
To put it mildly.
And, oh, have you ever heard of this? And are you part of the movement? Well, yes, we've heard of it. No, we're not part of the movement. And I had an email
F the
exchange with, yeah, with one of these guys who said, but Peter Joseph is an atheist. And I'm like, so fucking what?
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, you know, because someone is an atheist doesn't mean I have to agree with everything they say.
Oh,
And
of
I guess,
course.
you know, that's the whole point. It's like, I guess if we're about anything up here, you know, aside from giving a perspective of people who don't believe in any gods, it's that, you know, you really need to engage in some critical thinking and don't accept claims at face value. If someone just makes an assertion, ask them to back it up. You know, if someone makes a positive assertion, they have the burden of proof.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know, I just sort of feel sort of ashamed sometimes at what I see them doing and saying.
Well, I've
You
got
know,
good news for you. You don't have to feel ashamed because they don't represent you, and neither does anyone
Yeah.
else.
Right. You know, that just sort of goes back to what I was originally saying, is that there are certain things that I sort of like to associate with atheism, but, you know, that don't always hold up.
Well, yeah, I would like to believe that atheists are, you know, rational thinkers, critical thinkers, that, you know, they're always going to research their claims carefully and not make, you know, gross errors in judgment. But that's just not the case.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you
Okay.
for a
Thank you for
very
the call.
nice call.
Yep. Love the show. Okay,
All right.
bye.
Bye. All right, we're only getting one line at a time now.
I know. Well, actually, I have something
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to contribute because it happened 2 weeks ago at our rally at the
Yeah.
state capitol. For those of you who don't know, we got an email about this. A guy saying, hey, did you know there's a rally at the state capitol on Sunday the 16th? It's like, yeah, the ACA actually co-sponsored that rally. But anyway, in the course of that rally, it was right after we started the rally, so shortly after 11 a.m., a group of middle schoolers came up to the steps of the state capitol, heading in to visit the capitol. And I was out there passing out American flags. And so I grabbed a handful of them and ran over there to hand out American flags to any of the middle schoolers who wanted them. As I approached the group and I offered them American flags, one of the teachers came up and said, no, we're not part of this group. And I said, well, you know, it's just an American flag. You know, it's, if you want one, you can have it. And they said, no, we're just here to see the Capitol. And at that point, I realized that they had seen the sign on the canopy up there that said American Atheists. And they realized it was an atheist group up there doing this, and they were freaking out over this. And so I'm like, okay. And so they started to walk away, and one of the kids in the group said, well, what are they here protesting? And another kid said, oh, they don't want us to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school. And
That's
I turned
right. We
around.
only have one issue we care about.
Yeah, yeah. And I said, no, that's not it. I said, we don't want Thomas Jefferson taken out of the world history standards, for one thing. And one of the teachers turned around and just kind of ran over there and said, don't you dare talk to the students. This is not your place. I'm like, excuse me? It's absolutely my place. Not only am I a taxpayer, I'm paying for this miseducation of these students. This is the public square. I can say anything I want to. Mm-hmm. Welcome to America. So I guess my point on this is that here we have a group of students who came upon a protest conducted by a group of people that they may or may not agree with. And we've got a group of teachers shepherding these students through this group. What a fabulous opportunity to explain the American system of government to these students, and how if you disagree with your government, you have a right to go into the public square and protest that.
What is that, some kind of commie talk?
I know. But they passed up this opportunity. Instead, they decided to censor what their children would hear, and quickly, you know, shepherd them into the state capitol to get them away from the evil atheists who they might not agree with. So anyway, just goes to show there was an example of what we don't want to happen in our curriculum, where we have a group of people who wall off the students from ideas that they may not agree with.
Now, I would like to bring up something about those textbook hearings, which is that, as I understand it, the end result of all that hullabaloo was that basically all of the changes to the education curriculum passed, except for the taking out Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Which makes me, I mean, on the one hand, I'm glad that Thomas Jefferson will retain his rightful place among, you know, influential founding fathers.
Rush Limbaugh and the Contract on America.
Right, sure. But on the other hand, I'm a little worried that maybe we focused too much on that one single aspect of the changes and then made it easy for them to slip the rest past.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and that could be, my personal feeling on that is that the other changes were probably inevitable, and they probably still would have removed Thomas Jefferson if we hadn't brought so much attention to that issue. So I don't know. I think with their supermajority, they were going to get their way.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pick up Ace in New York, New York.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
How are you?
All right. I've been an atheist for probably about 5 years now. After I was a devoted, well, I wouldn't say I was a devoted Christian, but I've probably, been through a couple of religions, because living in the black community, which I've heard the show before, and this woman called in, and basically she happened to mention that why are so many black people so, religious? And she's absolutely right. I never heard of an atheist. Like, I've heard of atheism, but it was so like, oh my God, taboo type thing.
Yeah.
I really never questioned that there was not a God. But growing up, in this environment, I never really also, I never read anything. I never saw, any, nobody ever talked to me about Richard Dawkins or anything. I went to school, I learned what they taught it, but I never learned any of this stuff until I started, going to the internet and talking to a lot of other people, and I'm always very open-minded. I get a lot of information from everything, because if I believe in something, I want to know if I'm right or wrong about it. I want to know, what makes this, world tick, or universe. And if I'm dead wrong, I want it to be proven to me. Anyway, to get to the point of what I'm trying to say, I argue, of course, living here with in debate with a lot of creation. I was talking to another guy who believes in astrology. I mean, really, really believes in it. But what's the best argument, for a believer?
Well, it depends on the argument they're making. And I think that's where you have to get them to actually specify exactly what their claim is. Because it's hard to argue against something unless they've been very specific about it. You know,
Right.
if you allow them to be vague, they'll throw something out there, and maybe it's not exactly defined very well, and so you start to refute it, and then they come back with, oh, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this, and so then the claim shifts.
Right.
So I think that one of the best techniques is to get them to be very specific about what it is they're claiming, and then don't let them do what's called a gish gallop on you, where they start jumping from topic to topic to topic. You know, one of the things that we ask frequently is, give me your best argument.
Okay.
Right. Matt apparently doesn't like that one, from what I heard
Oh,
last
really?
week. But I think one of the things I learned a while back while doing this show and getting this one creationist who would call in practically every week is that it's really, really important, exactly what Jen said, not to let them jump around to different topics, because what will happen is they don't have science on their side. So they will throw out something that they consider to be basically a magic bullet, something which will destroy the entire science with one thing like, oh, I didn't realize there were dinosaur footprints next to human footprints.
Yeah.
Why, that completely invalidates everything I think.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily important that you always know exactly, you know, everything you need to know at the moment you're arguing with them, because you'll get another chance in the future and you'll get more practice. But basically what you want to do is single out one claim, make sure you understand what they're saying very well,
Right.
nail that claim, and then when they try to change the subject, which they will, say,
Right.
before we move on, can you acknowledge that you were wrong about that one?
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to chip away at these things one thing at a time, because what you'll get is creationists sending you this giant wall of links that say, oh, how can you refute all of this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't. I don't have that much time, but I can refute one at a time very thoroughly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we got an email the other day from a creationist who, I think he said he was about 16 years old or something like that, and he says, I have proof that, you know, God is real,
Right.
and he created the universe, and he links to a YouTube clip.
Yeah.
So I don't spend any time refuting YouTube clips, and I don't watch them. But I went to that one just out of curiosity as to which one it is, because we actually get so many of these, we pretty much know which ones they're talking about. And it was actually 59 minutes. If this kid thinks I'm going to spend an hour of my time watching Lee Strobel, of all people, with his nonsense, you know, he's crazy. But that's what it was. It was the Lee Strobel thing. It's like, Lee Strobel is one of the weakest apologists out there. And he's a liar. He can, well, I shouldn't say he's a liar. I find suspect his claims that he used to be an atheist, okay? But anyway, he completely misrepresents science. And so, you know, if you read some of Strobel's work and you go, infidels.org has a library, and there's a whole bunch of information, including some information about Strobel and some of the other apologists. You spend a little time on infidels.org in the library, you'll pick up a lot of things in there. For one thing, the arguments they use frequently, and you know, some of the things that you can do to answer those.
I think you would be remiss if you didn't use this opportunity to also mention Iron Chariots.
IronChariots.org, yes.
Counter-apologetics wiki. Anytime you come in across an argument that you've never heard before, that's a good first place to go to look up what the basic refutations might be.
And of course, if you're talking about creationists, you know, the place to find a lot of their arguments and the answers to them is Talk Origins. So talkorigins.org is a fabulous resource.
All right. Thank you. I've heard of it.
Okay.
Very much. All right. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks a lot for calling.
No problem.
And it's true, we don't, you know, that we say a lot that, and a lot of black atheists will say, I don't know many other black atheists. But, you know, in the last few months, we've been hearing from a lot of them, and that's, and just being an out black atheist is a step in getting it, you know, getting it to be basically accepted culturally.
Yeah.
So, you know, keep it up.
Definitely. Okay, I think we've got some more calls here.
All right, Paul's been on for a while.
All right.
Paul in Fairfax, Virginia.
Hi. I wanted to go back to what you were talking about 2 callers ago about basically kind of like the identity of atheists or whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
And when somebody asks me, "Are you an atheist?" I will reply yes. But I don't really like to use the term atheist when somebody asks me what I am, simply because I don't feel like just that term alone really kind of it only describes one issue, like whether or not God exists. And I think that there's a lot more to it than that, because I mean, with a lot of religions, it's more than just being theistic or not. It's about, you know, like what you actually are believing and stuff like that. So when somebody asks me what I believe or what are my inclinations or whatever, I tend to tell them that I'm an atheistic, agnostic, secular humanist.
Okay.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's like a little long, but I like to say that I'm atheistic and agnostic because I think a lot of people think that those two are mutually exclusive.
Right.
Which I don't believe that they are.
Yeah, I think we've got at least a couple of emails in the queue right now from people that think that they're mutually exclusive.
And if we don't have one, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's like, I'm atheistic because I don't believe in people's claims of God, but I'm agnostic because I don't necessarily know for sure whether or not God exists. And in that respect, I'm agnostic. However, I really, like, for a while I was actually kind of like, when I just called myself an atheist or an agnostic or whatever, I was really having trouble, like, with this because I couldn't, really tie morality or anything to atheism, because atheism, again, like I said, is simply a viewpoint on the existence of God, and it's just like you wouldn't call, like, if my friend believes in Catholicism, I'm going to call him a Catholic. I'm not going to call him a flying spaghetti monster rejectionist, even though that claim is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like secular humanism, because it's something that it really helps describe better, like, beliefs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's your call. I mean, like I said earlier, it's not the labels that matter so much as the discussion that they generate.
Yeah.
This is true.
But I think you've convinced me. From now on, I am going to be an atheist, agnostic, flying spaghetti monster rejectionist.
Yeah.
So.
All right, have a nice one.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
This is probably going to be, and if you want to get more detailed, I could list a bunch of other things I reject.
Yeah.
I bet this is going to manage to be the last call of the day, although you could
Probably.
still hang on if you're optimistic. But it's a local call. Mike in Austin, are you there?
Yeah, hey, how you doing?
Hey, we got about 10 minutes left.
Okay. I was raised like an Episcopalian. I've always had faith, but then I've been watching this show in the last 5 years, and I started finding myself being kind of atheist curious, and I've realized that.
Okay.
And I kind of, was listening to everybody, because I'll listen to anybody's arguments,
Have we
but
met
then
you
I felt
before?
myself drifting back towards having faith in my own way.
Mike, have we met you? I can't.
Yes, I've talked to you before.
Yeah,
and you were really nice when my mother. You were really nice when my mother died. I said something about I can't believe that she just dies and goes to nowhere, and you were really nice, and you didn't just say dismiss me as a Christian or something. You said, well, you gave me some philosophy about celebrating what they were when they were alive. And
good. I'm glad that was a good memory. Okay, go on.
Okay.
Well, anyway, so I just let the natural, like I say, I listen to the argument, and then I make my decision later on. I listen to both sides or all sides of an argument. And I just felt myself, like I said, I was atheist curious. I guess the way you call it. And I just felt myself going back to the naturally having faith, and then that's just where I leave it. I don't expect anybody else to. That's just the way I live it. So I think that a lot of people, when they fear atheism, it's like people that fear any kind of whether it be a conspiracy theory or they have maybe looking at certain kinds of artwork, they're kind of off the wall, off the charts or something. You need to give everything a shot, and then later on you make your decision. And that's why I think a lot of people have a lot of fear. They you know, because I know, like, atheists, you have your reasons, I've listed all your arguments, and I felt myself say, well, that's right, it doesn't look like there's a God and all that kind of stuff, you know, but I still feel it. And that's what I think that people would just say, look, you still feel it, you're not going to, God's not going to tap you on the forehead and, you know, double tap you in the head and say, hey, what are you doing listening to these atheists on their TV show, you know? I mean, it's valid to sit and listen to you guys. And I mean, you have your reasons, I have my reasons, but at the end of the day, I still have faith, and that's fine. It's just who I am, that's just who you are.
So what evidence convinces you that a God exists?
Like I say, there's no evidence. It's a feeling, and it's a feeling that.
So this is an emotional thing. Completely.
It is very emotional. So a lot of it's from my mother. And, you know, my mother was not a devout Christian toward the end when she died. She started slipping into, like, Buddhism and stuff, and then she just kind of, I think that her pain and going through all the cancer she had and stuff, I think she was being tried, going through a lot of trials, you know, crisis of conscience.
Yeah.
But still, what she passed on to us, you just feel like it still lives, you know, and I think a lot of what you said, Russell, that's your name, Russell?
Yes.
Yeah, what you said resonated with me, but I just feel like it goes on after death. And I think my main point has always been the soul, and I think that's the big dividing line. Because I don't care about creationism, I don't care about all that stuff. I just care about the soul, and in fact, I think that it exists, even if while we're alive, it still exists.
Right. Well, I mean, I appreciate your nice words, and I hate to needle you a little bit, but I mean, I think it would be fair to say that what you said at first, which was you have your reasons and I have my reasons, isn't exactly accurate. What you meant was you have your reasons and I have my feelings.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
that's right. You're right. Okay. To define the word reason, I understand. Yeah. Okay. So I have my conclusions, or I guess you would say, and my conclusions. And you have your conclusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I can't argue with your feelings, obviously, and I don't really want to. I think that it makes more sense to base what you think on solid reasons, and that's what we try to say on the show. But you know, we don't disagree that people have their feelings also.
Yeah.
And if you're not, like people say sometimes, if you haven't been reasoned into a position, then you can't be reasoned out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So okay, you still believe in a God and you still listen to us. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think most people, when you encounter these people like going, stay away from those atheists. I mean, they're afraid to even read any kind of all kinds of different arguments. As I've described, they're afraid to. Everybody needs to listen to every argument, and then you make your own decision.
Right.
You know,
well, I always hope too that what this show does, in order to make a positive influence, is not only try to make atheists out of everybody, because one, that's too much work, and two, I'm not really sure that it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't know that it's possible.
But what I do like to say is that we'd rather have somebody be a liberal Christian than a fundamentalist Christian, and we'd rather have somebody be an agnostic than a liberal Christian, and we'd rather be somebody be a serious atheist than just a pure agnostic.
Yeah.
So if I helped your drift towards our side, then I'm satisfied. Although I think that knowing that you don't really have a reason for God, I would hope that you would eventually drift more, but that's not my business.
Yeah. I would want to point something out to you, is that I don't choose not to believe in a God. It's that I don't believe in a God.
Right.
So for me, this is not an act of will. I can't believe that a God exists because I've looked for a God in every place where I should find one.
I'm sorry. Well, were you raised? Were you? Because I know Russell was raised with an atheist parents. I've heard him say. Were you raised in an atheist household?
No. My father, in fact, was a Methodist lay minister.
Oh, I see. My father's a minister too. I mean, well, he's minister. He just became one in later years. So
my father was planning to actually go to the seminary. He was retired, and he decided that he'd been a lay minister long enough. He was going to go to the seminary, and then he fell ill and subsequently died. So he never actually got to realize that dream. But yeah, I mean, he had and that's why it's very interesting to me when people email us or call us and saying, "Hey, you've just never read the Bible, or you just don't understand it." And I always want to ask them, okay, given that my father had a much more sophisticated understanding of the Bible and apologetics than these people do on average, what makes you think that you can tell me something that he couldn't, that would convince me?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Like I said, my main focus was my mother and the emotional upbringing we had, and the aspect of religion that it gives people comfort. I was thinking of during the Haiti devastation that in Haiti that a lot of people turn to, as usual, they turn to religion to kind of help them get through it. And I think it can't be a bad thing to have religion around if it gives people like, hey, look, let's nail one hunk of wood next to another one across another one and go out and pray to it for help, for comfort,
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of a dicey thing, because when you commit to believing in something that you don't have good reasons for, then there's often a whole host of baggage that brings with it. Like, people say, for instance, what's the harm of somebody pretending to be psychic, even if they're not a real one? But when you look at it in the big picture, there winds up being a lot of harm that comes out as a consequence of people willing to believe in psychics, like people who are gullible and vulnerable and in a tricky position, getting bilked out of thousands of dollars for the promise to communicate with their dead relatives, or psychics who claim to be able to investigate a crime but don't actually have any actual powers, wasting a bunch of time and misdirecting police resources towards something that could have been used to actually solve the crime.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you're right. That is the big picture for that. But the big picture in Haiti at that time was just people in a lot of pain, and their whole big picture was just what they're going through on a day-to-day basis still probably to
yeah,
today.
and I'm sure there were a lot of people willing to step in and take advantage of it too. And Mike, I like talking to you, and I wish we had more time, but we are actually out of time for the week.
Thanks a lot.
So thanks for calling.
That's
our show, everyone. And that's our great crew, who you cannot meet today at Threadgills, but try again next week.
But we might be at Dog and Duck, so.
We might. Okay.
Some
See ya.
of us anyway.